SpunOut.ie ventured to Brussels and Strasbourg to find out more about the European Parliament, what it does and how it works. We talked to MEPs, NGOs and European Parliament staff about their thoughts and views on a range of different topics. In this video, we caught up with some Irish MEPs and asked them about their lives and day-to-day work in Brussels and in Strasbourg.
Well, the role of an MEP is basically to actually create legislation. One of the roles is to create legislation in the sense of being involved in it through your committee, writing amendments to it and getting the legislation passed through the Council, which is the group of member states, and the Parliament too. It starts in a committee. It comes from the Commission, but is also partly coming from the Parliament itself. Starts in the committee, like the Environment Committee in my case, then goes to the big plenary voting sessions.
Well, I suppose it'd be a bit strange for me to explain to the general public exactly what the Parliament is about because, well, for a start, I've only been here just over a year, and at this stage I've established this is my elbow and this is my posterior. But out of that little bit of knowledge that I have, my understanding of my job is to scrutinise legislation that comes from the Commission. My job is to scrutinise proposals that come from political groups, and that's done at the most minute level at committee level. I'm a member of the Agriculture Committee. I'm also a substitute on the Environment Committee. So I suppose from a core point of view, if you were to boil down my work to exactly what it is, my job is to scrutinise in detail stuff that comes to the Agriculture Committee, follow it then into the main chamber, the plenary, and to vote accordingly in a way that I see best suits the Irish people, and in particular the people that vote for me and that I represent.
Well, I suppose I'm a Sinn Féin MEP for Dublin, first time MEP, so I'm a year into the job now, or just over a year, and I suppose it's been a real learning curve in terms of, you know, hitting the ground running and getting your head around how this monster works over here. So that's been really interesting and also quite daunting at times.
Well, most of the work happens in Brussels because 3 weeks out of every four, or 2 weeks out of every four, we would be in Brussels for what's called committee weeks or group weeks. And committee weeks are basically the committees that I mentioned that I'm a member of. We would have our meetings during that week, or we'd be voting on various pieces of legislation or reports that week. In the group weeks, they meet before the Strasbourg weeks. Effectively, we come together as political families and we discuss our strategy for Strasbourg on all of the big issues. And sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't. And then obviously the 1 week in every four we're here in Strasbourg where the Parliament meets formally for the plenary session. And then there are green weeks when we try to be back in your constituency to do events. But my situation is somewhat unusual in that my family are living in Brussels. So I commute from Dublin to Brussels to see my family and to go to the Parliament, and then I go back to Dublin. So I'm in Dublin most Thursdays, Fridays and Saturdays of every week, and I'm in Brussels the rest of the time. But you have to be in Brussels because that's where the Parliament is. It's not in Dublin. And most MEPs would come on a Monday, be there Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, go back to Dublin on a Thursday. And it's during those 3 days really that they try to do all of their work.
It's not easy now. This is another aspect that no MEP likes, is the incessant travelling. I have to go to Strasbourg every 4 weeks, which is a waste of taxpayers' money and is quite disgraceful. But I go there for 4 days. Brussels, every Monday, I go out to most Mondays to Brussels and I come back on Thursdays. And then it's time for constituency work. But of course, you have to leave time for other things too. But it's really manageable, you know, to do that. It's really, you could allow yourself to be run ragged very easily and then not do anything but it is manageable more than you think.
But of course, before you get to that point, you've physically got to find your way around the place. You've physically got to deal with actually getting here and getting back. And you've got to deal with the reality that this is going to have a big impact on your family. And all of that feeds into how well you work down here. And I think an awful lot of the core stuff, I've got it as organised as I can now, and because of that, I think my focus is becoming a little bit clearer about what I'm doing down here. I'm not as afeared that someone might say, what the hell did you vote in that way for? And then go, did I vote in that way? And some people might be shocked by this, but I think people need to know the truth on that. And look, I'm learning as I go along, and I just try and apply the same essence to everything that I vote on, that it will work out better for everyone if we go this way, you know.
It's very, very hard to tell people back home what you're doing. It's by the time you've explained how the thing works, you've already lost them, and so it is a complicated process, and it's not. You don't get the debates, the back and forth that you get in the Dáil. So it's hard to make it more interesting to people. But that's the job of an MEP. And if you're over here and you're elected, then your job is to try and make it understandable to people and to try and engage it and make it relevant to them as well. So there's a bit of that problem that if it's not easily, put into an article for a journalist, then they might find something easier to report on. But there's also the onus on us to make it relevant and to try and put it in something that's a readable format for people. So it's a bit of a catch-22. I think social media is really good, and it certainly has helped to promote what you're doing, and the fact that you can now put your speeches up, that someone doesn't have to go into a website and try and find them. So all of that helps. But it's a difficult one, and I know maybe when you're speaking to the other MEPs who've been in Leinster House before here, that they might realise, that you're kind of battling all the time to try and stay on the agenda for people, because the last thing you want is for people to think you went off and disappeared for 5 years and you're working away like a lunatic over here. So that's the other thing about the European Union. Everything takes so long that, you can't keep putting out press statements telling people about the same thing over and over again.
I'm doing a lot of work as well on things like the car hire industry. I get lots of complaints from constituents when they're off to Spain for their two weeks package holiday and they take a car or they go independently. They feel a great sense of injustice about the car hire business. So the work that I've done on that has led to a new code of conduct, and in a voluntary way, that the industry are talking about, doing. That's something real, because we need European standards when it comes to the car industry. It's a huge European industry, but it affects consumers. So there's a lot of things that you can niche issues that you can move into on a consumer side, which actually helps people.
There's one thing that never changes: the masses of stuff that passes through the chamber and the very large amount of things that you vote on. And you have to question whether even half the chamber there knows what they're voting on, because I'll openly admit it and let them put everyone else in here on a lie detector test. I would not have known exactly what I was voting for on everything I voted for over the last year. Now, that is becoming less and less vague, and I understand it more and more. But even still, some weeks here you could be voting 500 or 600 times. And it's a bit like people criticising referees for making bad decisions on offside. It's not humanly possible to get it right. So get real and get realistic on this one. And to me, it has deepened my Euroscepticism in that I see the very rules that were coming in our direction, which I questioned in the first place and questioned the amount of them. But now I see how they're implemented. Now, as far as I can see, it's even more of a problem for our country and for all 28 countries within the EU.